My kid would never do that. Have you ever had that thought? Join us as we talk about facing reality today on Family Vision. Rob Rienow here with Visionary Family Ministries alongside my beautiful wife, Amy. We just celebrated our 29th anniversary together, and we took a pretty epic trip, actually.
We did. We went to Hilton Head, which was where we honeymooned, and it was absolutely wonderful. And I have to share a little bit to the wives out there. Satan had kind of gotten in there over the years of our marriage to kind of tell me I didn't have that great of a honeymoon because so many people, go to these exotic places now and have all-inclusives and all this stuff. And I have to be honest, I was a little jealous at times at our honeymoon. I was like, we
drove to Hilton Head.
We went to Hilton Head. It
was great.
Didn't sound as glamorous. So it was such a good idea to go back. And it was absolutely wonderful. We just remembered how much we loved it then. It was just a really romantic time, and we just had a blast. So super thankful for that trip.
Yeah, it really was great. Well, quickly before we jump into our conversation today, 3 big VFM events coming up in the next year that we want to tell you about. Number 1, November 12 in Chicagoland, the Visionary Family Thanksgiving Ball. This is going to be dress up, dinner, dancing, family worship. It's going to be a very unique event. It's going to be incredible. Then, March 2024, VFM family trip to Israel. It has been a dream of mine to take the family to Israel, to dig deep into the incredible biblical history there. And we're doing it as a ministry, and we want your family to come. And then next June 7, 8, and 9, the VFM weekend away at the Kalahari Resort in Wisconsin Dells. It's going to be an incredible family retreat. All the information for those events, and they are coming up fast, is on our website, visionaryfam.com, or directly visionaryfam.com/events.
You do not want to miss the Thanksgiving Family Ball. It is going to be a spectacular time. We are so looking forward to seeing you all there.
Yeah, we can't wait. Well, we've got a little bit of a tricky subject today. We're going to talk about the need to be honest about the character of our own kids, specifically their character outside the house. It's really interesting. All of us see our kids' character problems at home, and they see our character problems at home as well. It's not a secret. But if we see all these character problems at home, it really shouldn't shock us that some of those same character problems are going to exhibit themselves outside the house. So we're going to start off with a bit of a sad tale.
Well, just a little caveat. We do see our kids' character problems at home, but sometimes even there, they can be hidden from us. They're our kids' character problems. So this was what I call the Holy Spirit wake-up call in my parenting, this story. So this sad tale begins when my oldest, RW, is about, I think, 6 years old, 5 or 6. I'm not exactly sure. I'm going to say 5 to give him the benefit of the doubt, just for his sake. And RW, I just have to say, he's our firstborn, and he is such a good sport because I think like 75% of our examples usually come from his life. So thank you, RW, for being such having a great attitude about your parents and what we do. So this is the story. We were living next to a family who was a missionary family. And RW had a good friend who was about 2 years older than him, so 7, first grade. It's the end of the school year. And this boy had worked really hard and gotten some reward from his parents. He had gotten a new Game Boy. So it's the first day that he has this Game Boy. He is so excited. He's bringing it over to show RW. We are having a barbecue, a dinner with this family. We're all having a great time. And as I'm putting my kids to bed, I get a call from my neighbor. And she's like, hey, Nicky can't find his Game Boy. And he thinks that it's, that it's lost or that it might be in your house somewhere. Because Nicky and RW had gone, in our house. We have a big, huge backyard. Like, it's not our backyard, but we called it the back 40, where there was this huge field behind our yard. And the boys have been all over. And so I'm like, oh, okay, I'll talk to RW. And so I talk to RW and say, hey, Nicky has lost his Game Boy. Do you have any idea where it is? He's like, no, that's awful. And I was like, I know it's awful. So he gets up right away and he, let's look for it. So he's looking all through his room. I can't find it. He's like, maybe it's dropped out in the yard back there. And so they get on bikes. Like Nikki comes back over. It's like summertime, so it's still pretty light. They're they're riding bikes all over looking for this Game Boy. And RW is just feeling awful that, he keeps talking about how upset he is that Nikki's lost this toy. Like, I feel so bad for him. And then, like, the cream, like the cherry on top of this, seeing all this compassion in RW. I'm so impressed. And he has an older Game Boy, something that someone had given to him. And he's like, why don't you let Nikki, he gives it to me to give to Nikki as like sort of, I'm sorry they lost his Game Boy, but he could have this one. And I am just, wow, what a compassionate child. And he's really trying so hard and giving up his Game Boy, which he really likes. And so I'm just, thank you, RW. So great. So proud of you.
Tender moment.
So then the very next day, we're driving to Target. I still remember it like it was yesterday. I'm on Manchester Road in Wheaton. I've got 3 kids back in the back of the Explorer there, and I see RW looking at something and playing down. Like he's looking down. So I say to Lissy, hey, what is RW playing with? And Lissy goes, Nikki's Game Boy. And literally,
ouch time.
I slammed my brakes on in the middle of the road. I'm like, what? I was not calm. I was not collective in any way, shape, or form. I am beyond stunned that the levels of deception here just keep laying out. Not only did he take the Game Boy, hide the Game Boy in his backpack, pretend to not know where the Game Boy was, look everywhere for the Game Boy, and then so graciously give him his old, pathetic Game Boy to Nikki. And I was praising him for all of that. No, he took the Game Boy, he kept it for his own, and somehow thought he was going to get away with this whole scheme. It was very eye-opening that I thought, okay, if I'm supposed to disciple these kids, right, and he's just been in my home, like he's not even gone to school yet or anything, he's like 5. We're like at pre-K level here. I'm like, I can't disciple character that I don't know. And that was so stunning to me and so eye-opening. I thought, wow. And as we got into it with RW, I was like, why did you do this? Like, why did you do it? And just through tears, he was just, I just really wanted the Game Boy. I mean, at the end of the day, it was just a pure matter of a 5-year-old really wanting something. And he was going through every effort to get it. And he was grounded. He claims he was grounded for, I don't know. In his mind, he was grounded for such a long time. It was such a life story for him as well. It'd be great to get him in the studio and get his perspective on it. But that just told me that, we really have to know our kids and not be blinded to the temptations that they're facing and, what the extent that the enemy will get them to be deceptive and do all of these things in order to keep their good child front up for their parents, and he was 5. I'll keep repeating that, 5.
Now, the reason we're sharing this story with you, is not to point out specifically RW's behavior, but really to shine the light on the parenting issue, which is what you just explained, that was happening on our side, which is we had rose-colored glasses on when it came to our own kid. We were my child would never fill in the blank. And I just think it is easy for us to forget that the human heart in our fallen condition is not naturally good. Whenever we sin, whether you're 5 years old, 55 years old, we revert back to Adam and Eve and with lying and hiding and covering up, or at least that's the temptation to revert back to those things. So our children come by this very, very honestly. Honey, let's talk, though, a little bit about the balance, though, that we need to have with, I think we should think the best of our kids and give them the benefit of the doubt, but let's talk about the balance here.
Yeah, and it's a tricky balance because I think that we want to be able to trust our kids. But I think the 10 years in high school ministry, I mean, this was happening at the time when Rob and I were also very experienced with the high school age And we had the experience over and over again of talking to high school parents and hearing exactly what you're saying. Well, my kids would never do that. And that's really what they believed. And we saw the other side of their kids. And we knew that what the parents' perception of their child's character was not in line. And that's not to say these are horrible kids. We're just saying that you could see that imbalance. And it taught me very early that you don't over-trust your kids. Like we want to build trust. And we always want to be teaching our kids that we're building trust. But you don't operate in this world like my kids would never lie. I hear that. We heard that way too often back then. And I continue to hear that. They would never do that. That is where we get really stuck, I think, as parents. If you really think that your kid has this moral capacity that really none of us have,
right.
So, but it's so easy to idealize our kids' behavior. And then the other problem is always perceiving our child as the victim. This is a very dangerous mindset. I probably swing the other way with my kids. I have this tendency I really don't like that victim mindset. So I will, if I see that happening, I get on it right away. But understanding that our kids can be the bad guy in a situation. They can be the one that's being rude. They can be the one that took the Game Boy, and not shaming them to the point like, well, you should have never done that. No, you disciple them through that. And RW is not a hardened thief. We got through all of that, and we.
Did you hear that, RW? You are not a hardened thief. We love you.
It was a great way for the Holy Spirit to teach me such an important lesson when my kids were just at the beginning, because it humbled me as a parent. It truly humbled me and told me that I need to be walking so closely with them to understand their struggles, to understand what their pitfalls are, to not expect that they are going to, behave perfectly. And even though that sounds so like, what parent expects their kids to behave perfectly? Actually, a lot of us do, and we don't realize that we're doing it.
Yeah. One of the ways we try to communicate this at the Visionary Parenting Conference, I'll ask a group of parents, I'll say, how many of you, when you were a teenager or elementary school, how many of you think that you were pretty good kids? And I don't mean that pridefully or you're tooting your own horn, but you think back, a lot of people use that phrase, I was a pretty good kid. Okay, so how many of you raise your hand if that was you? And probably more than half the hands go up. Some people are like, I was not a pretty good kid, but okay, the hands that go up get raised. And I say, okay, how many of you who just raised your hand, you said you were pretty good kids, how many of you had some parts of your life, areas of your life, thoughts, behavior, not so good, not so holy, that your parents had no clue about? Well, every hand goes up. That, I had some things going on that my parents were clueless about. So then I say, well, how many of you think your children are pretty good kids? And now all the parents raise their hand. Oh, yeah, my kid's a pretty good kid. Well, then hypothetically, if all of you pretty good kids had some secret struggles your parents were clueless about, hypothetically, would your children also have some of those struggles as well? So it's just this whole conversation of not being naive, not being rose-colored glasses when it comes to our own children, but being honest, being loving, being caring, being graceful. This is the task of discipleship.
Absolutely.
We've got some live events coming your way. We just finished Visionary Family Conference in Dallas. This weekend is Nashville. We would love to see you there. Tickets are still available, visionaryfam.com/Nashville. Next month, we are in Jacksonville, Florida. The month after that, Green Bay, Wisconsin. And of course, all of those amazing events I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, VFM Ball, VFM Israel, Visionary Family, Weekend Away, all of the information about how you can be a part of those things at visionaryfam.com. And you can reach out to us personally with questions, with prayer needs, thoughts that are on your mind. Email is the very best way to reach us at podcast@visionaryfam.com. And we're looking forward to our next time together with you on Family Vision.